You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Bad news. Those hot investments in your portfolio today, they'll look like ancient relics in the next century. Doesn't matter if you've packed it with real estate, crypto, or something as bizarre as jars of anime bathwater. Sooner or later, a new industry rises up and sweeps away the old. History proves it. Once upon a time, spice, cotton, and oil turned fortunes. Today, it's silicon, space, and the new titan on the block, artificial intelligence. So what were the biggest industries in the past, and what secrets do they whisper about the future of money? Surely something stayed profitable since the dawn of the Stone Age, right? Chapter 1. Olive oil, oligarchs. Before coins and banks, people traded for survival. Back then, a sharp piece of flint was more valuable than any gem. Tribes swapped it eagerly, perfect for shaping weapons and tools that could feed a family or protect a village. It was life and death, packed into a stone you could hold in your hand. But it didn't last. The age of the rock gave way to something greener and softer, agriculture. When our ancestors swapped spears for seeds, that was the first industrial revolution. Hunter-gatherers settled down, planting fields, raising animals. Villages grew into cities almost overnight. What you could grow, and what you could grow that your neighbor couldn't, became the real currency. Trade networks spread. Early nations craved the exotic. Cavemen might have traded shells for status, but by the time the first empires rose, people flaunted their wealth with spices, silk, and liquid gold, olive oil. Owning an olive grove was like buying stock in an unknown tech company before it changed the world. Demand exploded. The Silk Road connected continents, and the warm blue stretch of the Mediterranean turned into the Wall Street of the ancient world. Spices, silk, precious oil, traded alongside coins, art, songs, and knowledge. Without those early swaps, places like Rome and Egypt would never have become giants. So how did we get from swapping sharp rocks to building empires? By turning each age's biggest industry into fuel for the next. Chapter 2. Aggressive expansion. Land has always been more than dirt, it's power. As soon as humans realized they could grab more by taking it, the game changed. Spice and silk made you rich. But to keep that wealth safe, you needed muscle. The biggest stick in the yard beat out the prettiest necklace every time. Enter the craftsman, a swordsmith, a carpenter, a mason. Anyone who could shape the world with their hands suddenly carried more value than the farmers in the fields. The economy shifted. Wealth no longer depended on what you could pick or pluck from the earth. Now it was about what you could make. This was the first taste of manufacturing. Villages got self-sufficient. Local production answered local needs. Why haul exotic veggies across deserts when your own peasants could grow hearty grains at home? Luxuries once dripped only from the hands of kings. Now they trickled down to everyday life. Weavers, potters, butchers, builders, they were the new rich, until tax collectors knocked. But for all the progress, life hit a ceiling. Feudal power games stalled the march forward. Thrones changed hands. Land shifted. Swords clashed. Life crawled forward in tiny steps, until a moment of clarity. Maybe fighting didn't have to block trade. Maybe enemies could do business. And that opened the gates to something bigger. Chapter 3. Money is the root of all medieval. This was the dawn of the global market. The Silk Road turned from a rough track to a gleaming highway of gold and pepper and silk that shimmered brighter than the king's crown. Farmers and craftsmen faded. Merchants became the new royalty. Trade blossomed. The world's elite dined on pepper and cinnamon, draped themselves in silk spun half a world away. The old ways of scraping by gave way to gluttony for spices, art, music, and luxury, and all that wealth needed something shiny to hold it together, literal gold. Mines in Africa unearthed treasures that poured into Europe and the Islamic empires, coins minted, jewels cut. Gold piled up in royal halls that would have made Rome's emperors weep with envy. Merchants weren't just shopkeepers, they were adventurers. They mapped out new routes, dodged thieves, gambled with storms and sickness, and dragged treasures home by the wagon load, if they survived the trip. A merchant's fortune could rival a monarch's power. But crowded markets breed new hungers. When the spice racks overflow, the world wants something fresh. Chapter 4. New World, New Net Worth. The horizon called. Ships bigger and faster than any caravan rumbled toward lands few had seen. With sails full and cannons ready, nations scrambled to claim faraway coasts. What they found fed Europe's hunger for more. Gold and silver from the Americas flooded back to royal coffers. Nutmeg, ginger, furs, tobacco, even sugarcane became king. Sweetness was status. Rum outshone old wine cellars. Empires no longer leaned on Asia for sugar. They grew it themselves, thanks to colonies stretching across the seas. But all that ocean to cross? You needed ships. Sturdy, monstrous ships. So shipwrights, once humble woodworkers, became the secret tycoons of the age. Funny how the wheel turns. Merchants once booted craftsmen out of the spotlight. Now they paid those same craftsmen fortunes to carve ships big enough to haul their loot. It took armies of men to keep those ships moving. But the next giant leap would shrink armies and multiply profits, when someone realized machines could do what hands alone never could. Chapter 5. Cash flows in, rails roll out. When the Industrial Revolution hit, the world's money engine roared louder than ever. Suddenly, raw materials didn't trickle in from dusty roads or creaking ships. They thundered in on steel tracks. Steam-powered trains rewrote the map. Routes grew longer, wider, faster. Trade went from weeks to days. This wasn't just transformative. It was explosive. The Silk Road's dusty lanes? Obsolete. Ships braving pirate waters? Slower than a whistle-stop train slicing through the countryside. Cotton was king now. Factories spun it by the ton, weaving mountains of textiles for markets hungry for cheap clothes. But where there's cotton, there's a grim shadow. To feed those textile mills, someone had to pick the raw crop. Human beings became another commodity. The transatlantic slave trade surged, a dark artery of profit feeding the industrial boom. Metal-fueled machines. Coal fed furnaces. Gold still glittered in vaults, but coal was the new black gold. Britain alone sat on oceans of the stuff. It poured into factories, railways, steamships, and into the pockets of those clever enough to own the mines and the men. This was the first time everyday workers could see wealth trickle down, even if the cost was soot, smoke, and tiny hands blackened in dangerous jobs. Cities swelled. The old agrarian dream shriveled. People left farms behind and became gears in the machine. Craftsmen who once shaped swords now forged train parts. Merchants once carrying silk now sold iron. For the first time, wealth shifted from what you did with your own two hands to what you could get others to build for you. Faster, cheaper, bigger. And once railways carved the land into grids, there was no turning back. The machine was hungry for more. Chapter 6. The Engine Economy. Steel and steam reshaped cities. Skyscrapers reached higher. Bridges leapt rivers. Concrete jungles rose where pastures once sprawled. But another breed of titan emerged, the banker. Bankers had always been around, slipping promissory notes and coins across dusty tables. But after the world's wars tore nations apart and stitched them back together, money itself became an industry. The Roaring Twenties taught millions they didn't need to own land or coal mines to grow rich. They just needed a slip of paper stamped with stock. People who once hoarded every coin now spent freely. Fashion, radios, automobiles, houses, stocks. The average person tasted something sweet, disposable income, spending power. Ordinary workers could now decide what survived in the market. Did you buy a record player, a washing machine, a shiny new car? You voted with your wallet. When the Great Depression cracked the fantasy, the factories didn't vanish, they pivoted. War drums pounded out more steel for bullets and bombers. Afterward, that same steel poured into dishwashers, refrigerators, and movie theaters. Manufacturing morphed into mass consumerism. Entertainment sprouted new billionaires. Cinema became a mint. Radios crooned and crackled with ads. And soon enough, a little box called television glued whole families to the living room. Once again, industry adapted. The Silk Road faded. The coal trains slowed. Now the real trade was in eyeballs and airtime. If you could sell people what they didn't yet know they wanted, you'd made it. But all those shiny consumer goods needed something slicker than steam or steel. Chapter 7. Crude business. Oil, black gold, liquid dinosaur bones that built empires and toppled them. It was always around, but when the post-war world fell in love with cars, oil slipped the crown on its slick head. Highways across continents. Railways gave way to trucks that ate up mile after mile. Planes lifted cargo and people into skies the Silk Road merchants could never dream of crossing. Petroleum pumped life into new empires, plastic. The same oil that fueled cars and planes molded toys, wrapped chocolate bars, pressed vinyl records and coated cassette tapes. Movies? Special effects needed synthetic magic spun from crude. Computers rose next, carving out the Silicon Age. Semiconductors became the new flint stones, tiny, sharp and priceless. IBM, Microsoft, Apple, these new digital smiths hammered a future that no ancient empire could have pictured. Offices replaced fields, meetings replaced minds. But another industry bubbled in the shadows, drugs. Not just the shady trade in back alleys, but legitimate pharmaceutical giants. Medicines, prescriptions, wonder pills, legal or otherwise mind-altering substances spun billions. Pablo Escobar rode the same boats and planes as oil barrels and computers, tying the threads together in one slick knot. For a brief moment, it seemed oil would rule forever. After all, everything needed it. Cars, planes, factories, even your favorite movie on a VHS tape was wrapped in oil. But time has a way of humbling every king. Chapter 8. Future Earnings. Some say oil's time is running out. Some say it'll outlast us all. Nuclear power lingers in the wings, the promise of clean energy, waiting for its turn to shine bright without melting anything down. Some dream of a future where we split atoms for breakfast before climate change turns the dinner table upside down. One thing's certain. Energy will remain the heartbeat of every future empire. Whether we burn oil, crack uranium, or chase the sun, we'll need power to feed every shiny thing we build. Artificial intelligence is ready to devour energy like no industry before it. All those servers humming, all those processors crunching, they don't run on good intentions. They run on kilowatts. Even if cars ditch gasoline for batteries, even if movies go fully digital, even if shopping is nothing but bits and pixels flying through fiber-optic veins, the power still has to come from somewhere. And once we've scorched every coal seam and milked every oil well, we'll look to the stars. Because why stop at Earth? Space tourism sounds like a billionaire's daydream, but dreams drive dollars. Somewhere someone is sketching the first hotel suite on the moon. Another team is plotting how to mine asteroids for metals no shovel on Earth can touch. The next gold rush might be drifting above our heads right now, locked in a frozen rock waiting for the right spacecraft to haul it home. Back down here, AI keeps learning. Automation sharpens its knives for every old industry. Farming, once the heartbeat of civilization, now needs fewer hands. Manufacturing, once the pride of the industrial age, now hums with robots who never sleep, never strike, never get old. Some say we'll circle back to what we started with, not flint or oil, but art and ideas. After all, when machines do the lifting, what's left is what makes us human. A new renaissance, built on stories, songs, and streams of content we rent instead of own. The future promises convenience for a price. Subscription for your entertainment, your food, your clothes, your tools. Everything as a service. Everything rented, nothing permanent. To some, that's evolution. To others, it's a warning. Proof that the old economic engine is coughing out its final puffs of smoke. The past shows us this much. Every generation believes its king commodity will last forever. None have been right yet. So what's next? Will AI stand as the new unstoppable titan? Will the next oil be something we haven't even named? Or will the real wealth drift off this planet, where the next Silk Road loops through the stars? Every century hands us new tools and new temptations to misuse them. Every fresh technology unlocks a door for a fresh scammer, a new swindle dressed up as progress. The game never changes, only the board does. Wherever it goes, one truth holds. The more things change, the more we chase the next big thing, the next hot trade, the next empire to build, and someday leave behind.